Okay, so here's what my color palette looks like. I'm using yellow, I'm using brown, the burnt umber brown, I'm using blue, and I just wanted to show you first of all that I'm making gray with white and black, but that's not actually what I want you to do. I'm just showing you how you can make your own gray if you use blue, the ultramarine blue, and burnt umber mixed together. So we're going to compare it. I'm going to try and get the same value too. So ultramarine, umber, and white. You'll get a richer gray if you make it yourself and not just mix black and white together. And there are multiple ways of getting gray, but for now the easiest way is to do burnt umber and ultra. So I want a variety of grays. I want some that are a little bit blue, some that are warmer. So think temperature too. So I want to add a little bit of brown to warm up the gray or blue to cool it. And I want a range of gray. I want dark gray and light gray, because even though you look at your shoebox, the back wall, and it looks gray, just one solid color, it's not. There's angles to the shoebox. There's those side walls, which are casting shadows. So you want to have, you'll have dark areas and you'll have light areas. If you look at the top of your wall, it's receiving the most amount of light, so it's a little bit lighter in hue value compared to if you look at that wall lower down towards the white floor. So I'm mixing the gray for the back wall, but I'm also going to be mixing the white color. And this is the white color that you see on the bottom floor. So you have the back wall, but you have the floor where your apple is sitting on and your cup. So it's not pure white, and it's not pure white for a couple of reasons. One is those side walls are creating a shadow, and also there's reflected light on a white surface, and it's reflecting some of the dark gray of the background. So instead of pure white, you're going to dull it down with a light, really light gray, like a value 2 or a value 3 on the value scale. And you want it a little bit dark because you want your highlights to really pop out at you. And if you use white on the background or on that floor, those highlights won't pop as much because they'll be exactly the same value. You want to create those areas of contrast on your focal point, your apple, and then your secondary focal point, your cup with the water. So I'm just adjusting those colors. I'm also mixing the cast shadow colors. And I'm making sure I have enough paint. So I'm actually mixing quite a bit because I'm going to be covering my canvas with 2 layers of paint. All right, so here I am testing my strip. I have a test strip there that I'm holding up against the back wall just to see how closely I've matched it. And I'm making marks off camera with my brush on that paper, and I'm going to hold it up to the wall to confirm. So I'm trying for a blue-gray, and it doesn't have to match perfectly. The value does have to match. So I'm adjusting, I'm adding a little bit of brown. You could even add a touch of black to it too. But you have to be careful with black. If you use pure black, even when you add gray to it, it's a flat color. You want to create some life within your painting, and you don't want things to be too flat. So that's the color of the floor. It's so light, it's disappearing on there. It's hard to see. And then I'm going to be mixing the cast shadow as well. I'm going to check that. So there's my cast shadow. I'm looking at it, seeing how close it is to the apple. And if you look at that cast shadow, there's multiple. It's a gradation, so it's not just one value you're mixing multiple values there. And I added some blue to kind of cool it down a little bit. And then you can see me checking how close. So it is important that you make some values ahead of time, and you make enough, and then you kind of check them. And again, they don't have to be 100% accurate, but the value does need to be correct. Okay, and that's probably good enough. Okay, so we're going to lay in this painting. We're going to put the back wall in first, and we're using our dark gray to do that. And you'll notice that you have that underpainting, which is a really kind of warm color. So when we're first covering it, you can kind of see through it. It's still a little bit transparent, especially if you have like water on your brush. But even if you don't, it's still a little bit transparent. So we're going to be painting this multiple times. So don't let it bother you if it's too thin at first, because we're going to go over it again. And I use kind of an erratic brush stroke, so I'm going kind of in this X pattern. And I am using a big brush there. So this is kind of a block in. The process for you so you can see it happening fast. But I'm careful to kind of work around the objects that go right up to the edge when I'm painting. And if you do go over something a little bit, don't worry. We're going to be layering. It doesn't matter that much. I am trying to apply the paint evenly, so if I have an area that's thicker, I kind of smooth it out a little bit. It's always kind of good to work in this method of painting thin at first and then painting it thicker as you move into subsequent layers. So that darker background is helping to create a feel of depth. And we're looking at a shoebox, which is not a large depth of field, but because the background is darker than the foreground, than the floor, that plane there, that white plane, it's helping to create some areas that are going back and some areas that are coming forward. So here's the actual floor, the foreground, which is not white, it's a very light gray. And the white paint is going down, or the light gray paint is going down a little bit more opaque than the backdrop in the background. And here are the cast shadows. Not the same color gray as the background, they're lighter. I'm looking at the cast shadows on the objects, and I'm trying to determine where are the dark areas, where are the lighter areas within the shadows. Shadows in general, the cast shadows, will get lighter as they move away from the object, so it's important to remind yourself of that.